So Jon Stewart went on a podcast here with Tom Segura, who's a comedian, and he asked him a question about, hey, are you going to run for president, right? Jon Stewart, he was doing his show for a really long time. Then he did that Apple show. But the entire time, he always dips his toe into the world of real politics, like when he helped the 9/11 first responders because they weren't getting health care, and he tried to get them health care. So many of them were dying, and they couldn't afford to pay the medical bills, etc. He was like, look, I'm going to step in, and I'm going to help out. And so there's always this little bit of like, yes, I'm the comedian, I'm the funny guy, but also at the same time, this shit matters, and I'm trying to help fix it, right? So credit to Tom Segura here. Asked him, hey, are you going to run for president? And let's listen to his reaction. Here we go.
Like it's just fucking crazy.
It's too crazy now.
Yeah.
Which is why, are you going to run for president?
Oh, I wanted to announce.
Okay. So
and I really generally need two bears to make an announcement.
Yeah,
like
I think
this.
but I mean, this is such a big one. How often do you get asked for
He
that?
says that because the name of the podcast is Two Bears, One Cave, but only one of the bears is there. Bert Kreischer's the other one. He's not there for whatever reason. Anyway.
How often do you get asked for that?
I think anybody that is in the space I'm in, I always view it as none of the above, in the way of it is a protest for the status quo being so unsatisfactory for people. It's the kind of thing that, like, I remember this was 15 years ago, somewhere along the line, 20 years ago, there was a poll done. Everybody made a big deal of it. Who is the most trusted newsman or newscaster in America? And it was Tom Brokaw and Peter Jennings and Brian Williams and Diane Sawyer and Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
And Jon Stewart won running away.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to explain to people, like, I could have been dildo wrapped in gold and that would have won. Because what people are expressing in that poll is, I'm dissatisfied with the status quo and the establishment delivery of this service. They have lost my trust.
So he's right. He's right. But at the same time, that was Trump's original appeal in 2015 and 2016. That's what it was. It was, I'm the anti-establishment right-wing populist. So people were so fed up with the system, so fed up with the status quo, so fed up with the establishment, so fed up with they don't feel like they're getting a fair shake. They don't feel like the future is going to be better. They feel like things are getting worse. That any flavor of what appeared to be anti-establishment, they were like, okay, good enough. Right? And look, in the case of Trump, we all saw how he governed for 4 years. It was not remotely anti-establishment. In many ways, he propped up the establishment. He was the most establishment. He was George W. Bush without a filter, right? But what Jon Stewart needs to realize is what you're describing is true, but that's like all the more reason why somebody like you should run. Because we don't want the fake populists on the right who pretend like they're anti-establishment, but they're not. We want a real populist on the left who's actually anti-establishment. And so he's trying to downplay it like, yeah, they picked me as the most trusted newscaster, but here's why that doesn't matter. It could have been anything. They could have wrote a bowl of oatmeal and it would have won. It's like, well, there's something to take away from that. That it was you that won running away, and I think he's uniquely positioned where he would do really well. Look, I'm at the point now when it comes to the left running for president that, well, what was the closest we got? Bernie Sanders. Okay, he did get close. He was a senator. A senator is undeniable because he's been in politics for a quadrillion years and he's a senator. Even Congress people, they brush aside because there's so fucking many of them and it's a lower level. So it doesn't matter if you're a lefty and you run as a congressperson. They can still marginalize you and push you to the side and disenfranchise you and not cover you and smear you, etc. With Bernie, they couldn't deny him, so they had to cover him, but their way of covering him was mostly negative, right? With Jon Stewart, he has, honestly, I think, the category of like A-list celebrity. Maybe you can get away with B-list too. The cameras, they can't keep their eyes off you, right? The camera cannot stay off you. That's what happened with Trump. They couldn't keep the fucking camera off him. Why? Because he's funny. He's funny. And at the end of the day, the media also has a sensationalism bias, and Jon Stewart says the kind of things that are going to get attention. So I almost think running as an A-list celebrity and an actual lefty is almost better and taken more seriously than running as a senator and being a lefty. Right? And I don't think you could just ride in as a congressperson who's a lefty or a nobody who's a lefty and just sweep the country because they'll never take you seriously. They'll never cover you. They will cover Jon Stewart as a curiosity. They'll cover him because he's fucking funny. They will also try to smear him, but he's already going to have a horde of supporters just off the jump. All right, let's keep going.
What people are expressing in that poll is, I'm dissatisfied with the status quo and the establishment delivery of this service. They have lost my trust. And so people in my area, I'm sure Marr gets it. Tucker Carlson gets it. Like all the people in the space of giving a...
Marr and Tucker Carlson are so much more divisive than Jon Stewart is. So much more divisive. I think Tucker would have a better chance on the right than Marr would on the so-called left, because now he's doing his like right-wing pivot and he thinks of himself as like an enlightened centrist type. But Jon Stewart is way more electable than both of them. There's something very dislikable about Bill Maher. And Tucker, it's hit or miss. I think there's something very dislikable about him to a lot of people, and to his group, there's something very likable. But I think there's a hard cap on his support. Jon Stewart, basically the entire left loves Jon Stewart. Liberals love Jon Stewart. And then there's even plenty of right-wingers who are like, yeah, I don't agree with him, but he's a good guy. I like what he did with the 9/11 victims.
Honestly, how did Trump become president?
Well, I was about to say.
Same shit.
It's the same analysis, right? Because everybody who goes, how the fuck is this guy president? Or, how is he getting this support? What most people you would hear, they're like, he's not like these other guys. He's not from that political landscape where they say the right thing. And like,
yeah, as Rand Paul said in 2016 after one of the debates, he's a truth teller without the truth. He gives the aura of authenticity and truthiness because he shoots from the hip and he has no filter, but there is actually no truth there.
He was just this wild guy who was saying wild things, and then that was exciting to people. It was exciting that somebody was...
And the wilder it would get, everybody
better.
kept saying, well, he's certainly, now that he said that, it's certainly done.
Over,
And everybody's like, he's going up in the... I think what ended up happening there is it was like an antibiotic resistant strain of something. And so people kept saying, well, certainly if we hit it with strep and if we hit it with erythromycin and penicillin, it would have to die.
Sure.
And then it was just like,
nope.
Not even close.
It's too strong.
Too strong.
It's way too
Just
strong.
keeps going.
But who else is equipped to deal with somebody like that other than Jon Stewart? Guys, humor is such a tool. It is such a weapon. And Trump has it in his own way. It's almost like he's so ridiculous and such a caricature and so goofy that like even people who hate him like me can't help but laugh at him oftentimes when he says funny shit, right? But Jon Stewart's like one of very few people who is uniquely positioned to be able to handle that sort of a stuff. Now, by the way, in this scenario, he wouldn't actually be running against Trump because we're talking about 2028, right? But, like what Democratic politician is going to beat Jon Stewart in a Democratic primary? I'm serious about it. What do you think? Fucking Beto O'Rourke is going to be like, what are we talking about here? Mayor Pete is going to like, what? I think he'd get it running away, man.
It seems like everything is being done to not have this guy, on ballots and
everything other than just have a better idea. Just fucking beat him.
Yeah, exactly. That is not being done.
Yeah, and that's another thing Stewart would provide. Like, think about this fact. Jon Stewart and Bill O'Reilly notoriously, well, maybe not notoriously, that might not be the right word, but they debated each other all the time. They would both go on each other's shows and debate each other. They did a debate in public, too. And he just knows how to handle Bill O'Reilly's ass. Massive ego, massive narcissist, phenomenal talker, right? And John would just win the crowd over from him and go run away victories, right? That's very similar to Bill O'Reilly in that way is very similar to Trump. Again, who on the right would beat? What would you think? Fucking Ron DeSantis would beat Jon Stewart? You think Trump Jr. would be able to beat? Like, what are we talking about? Nikki Haley? No. Look, I know he didn't say no when he was asked the question, are you going to run for president? But this also is not a yes. So allow me to be the first, although I'm definitely not the first, to say, for the love of God, John, please. please. We can't have the left in the wilderness for any longer. We've never needed the left more, and they've never been further, seemingly, from power. And look, I'm sure there's areas, if I go through with a fine-tooth comb, I'm sure I'll find areas where I disagree with him, or I think he's wrong, or, I think he's being too careful, or whatever. But all things considered, by far the best option. By far. Bernie's 798 years old. It's just not happening, right? Somebody's got to fill that. Does AOC have the ability to get elected nationally and be the force that people once thought she would be? I don't know if she has that broad appeal. I know he does. I mean, everybody makes fun of it, but oftentimes we've seen celebrities step into a political role and handily won, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesse Ventura. In other countries, Zelensky was a comedian, right? Like, why not? Why the fuck not? John, I need you to go ahead and do it, man. I need you to go ahead and do it. I need you to go ahead and do it. 2028. You know, I know it's a headache. I know it's a pain in the ass. I know it's, you know, would feel like shit at so many different instances, but we need you, man. We need you. So somebody better, I was going to say get a petition going, but it's not like a petition would actually like change it. It's not like it would do anything, right? It's not like John Stewart, oh, look, 3 million people signed this. I guess I'm doing it. But for the love of God, anybody who knows him, do me a favor, talk him into this shit. Talk him into it. Look, I'm just going to hang my hat on the fact that he didn't say no when Tom Segura asked him. He didn't say no. I guess that's something, right? Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.